All right, we are so lucky to be joined by a former 3-year captain for the Loyola Chicago Ramblers, a man who was twice named the Ramblers team MVP, a coach who's been integral in Iowa State's success under TJ Otzelberger. We welcome Iowa State assistant coach J.R. Blount. JR, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Appreciate you having me. All good up here. It's just a little cold in Maine, so getting
I'm
used
in
to that.
Chicago, man. I'm
I
in
know,
Chicago.
man. Hey, it's we've been today was the first day over that was not negative. So it was like, hey, this is like summer out here.
You're a Milwaukee guy, though, and you've been
Oh
all
yeah,
around. You're okay, right?
I'm good. I spent those 4 years in Colorado and got spoiled because it was 300 days of sunshine. So that was nice out there.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, the cold last week, it kinda took my breath away. It's like that. You know what else took my breath away was, that game in Fort Worth, man. Are you able to breathe? Are you good now?
Yeah, man, we made it entertaining. But it was good, guys showed some resolve, and I mean it's hard to win on the road. So you kind of knew it was coming, and you're like, all right, they're gonna make a run at some point. This is a NCAA tournament TCU team, and they came, and luckily we only played for 40 minutes and didn't have to play for 41.
It's tough to win on the road. You're absolutely right. It's tougher to do that in the Big 12, and we're gonna
Yeah.
get to your conference and what a bear it is to play. But first, JR, what I wanna do is give our listeners a little bit of insight into your background. I think it's important that we highlight where you came from and how you've risen through the ranks, and it's been a really meteoric rise, if I do say so myself. So, JR, what I want you to do as best as possible, uh, can you start us in your playing days? Okay. I'm very curious to know about your recruiting process and how you ended up at Loyola.
Yeah, from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and it was really Loyola, Milwaukee, Colgate, SMU, and Mississippi State at the end. And you know, uh, I really thought I was going to go to Milwaukee. They were coming off a Sweet 16 with Bruce Pearl. Bruce bounces obviously and goes to Tennessee, and just kind of Chicago. I love the city, love the academic that was involved with Loyola, and went there, loved the coaching staff, and kind of fell in love with it. Did a few visits, and it was an easy trip, and you're still, 2 hours away from home, so kind of starts there. Had a great career. Was privileged to be able to play a lot from day one, and still talk to all my college coaches, all my teammates. So it was a really special 4 years for me. Then was able to go play overseas in England, and jumped into coaching at Division 3, Wisconsin Stevens Point, where yeah, there's two good things that happened there. The second I would say is win the national championship. The first is I met my wife, who was a player, fifth year senior on the women's team, and she had a historic career there. They went to Elite Eight twice, and from there you go to St. Leo University down in right outside of Tampa, Florida for 3 years, and then to the Division 1 ranks. Drake University. Started as basketball operations for 2 years, bumped up to an assistant for 2 years. My last year was with Coach Medved at Colorado, who is now at Colorado State. We go to Colorado State. I'm there for 3.5 years, and end up here at Iowa State. TJ and I have known each other for probably since I was 14 years old. Um, TJ is from Milwaukee, and he was at Chipola as I was coming up, and my dad was our coach, and TJ recruited probably two or three of my best friends to try to get him down to Chipola. So he would call my house phone all the time, and we kind of started to formulate a relationship. And just throughout the years, TJ was at UNLV, was in Colorado State, so we had that. But he's been integral in my career and helping me out, and always been somebody that has always tried to help out myself and other guys from the Milwaukee area. So it was almost like a perfect fit when he got the job here and asked me to come along.
That's amazing. That is an amazing trajectory there. Amazing that you found your wife as well.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a serious question. Like when you meet and you decide to get married, and then obviously have a family, part of that equation is discussing goals, aspirations, especially in the coaching world. And
Mhm.
so you mentioned all the stops you've been to. Like at Wisconsin Stevens Point, did you envision like, hey, there's probably a good chance where we're going to be bopping around? Are we both okay with that? I suppose.
Yeah, I think, my wife is awesome, and she was kind of doing her thing at the time too. She's a licensed clinical counselor and was getting her PhD. So actually, when I was at St. Leo, she was getting her PhD at the University of Central Florida. So we were kind of still together in that journey and both trying to ascend our careers. And she's 100% on board and holds it down at the house. We got three little girls, so it's organized chaos here. She's leading the charge. I'm just trying to stay out the way and help everybody survive here.
There you go. I think you're doing a great job if I were to guess.
Thank you.
JR, let me unpack that answer again a little bit more. So you spent some time at Drake. Did you ever
Mhm.
cross paths with Matt Gatens?
I did, and I was right after when we came. Matt was right after us. So, but I know Matt, and we actually share an agent. So he's a good guy, and obviously they do good things at Iowa. And he was a great player as well.
Matt's a great dude. He's been on this program. And so when I saw that you had spent time at Drake, I was trying to piece together the
Yeah.
timelines. It's funny, right? The college basketball community is huge, but it's
Oh
also a
yeah.
small world.
Everyone knows everybody, man. It's as long as you're a good guy, you stay in all the good circles.
That's right. So I want to talk a little bit more about your playing days at Loyola there, JR. So as we know Loyola today, Final Four program, a program that is accustomed to winning here recently. During your days, do you feel and when you see them today, do you feel that personally and as a team, you guys really helped lay the foundation for what folks see Loyola Chicago today?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's been so many good players to kind of go throughout that, and obviously the ascension to first the Missouri Valley and then now to the Atlantic 10 helps the name recognition. But right after Coach Weitzel, my coach, left, Coach Moser came in and started to elevate the program, and was at Drake when they were in the Valley, and that was the year they went to the Final Four, and then obviously Coach Valentine. Drew's one of my good friends in the business. I actually just talked to him yesterday to try to help him with the VCU scout. So because we already played him, so sending him anything we have. But it's just awesome to see, and I think as a community, a Loyola community, you want them to continue to be successful and keep rising and keep winning. And I follow them and watch all the games that I can. And it's just special to see. Obviously, Coach Moser's in the league right now, but it's something where when we see each other, you still have that respect because you know what they've been through. They've been in those same offices, those same steps as the guys that I did it, and then the guys before me as well.
Were you able to go to any of those tournament games?
Man, it's crazy. I still regret it to this day. And we had just got the job at Colorado State, like the same time it was happening. And Nico, Coach Medved, is even telling me, like, man, you need to go down there. You need to go down there. And I'm like, man, we're trying to do workouts. We're trying to figure out who's on our roster. Like, we still need to add 5 guys. I'm like, I'm good. I'm good. And now looking back, I'm like, man, I wish I would have just went to the Final Four. Like all my teammates were down there. It's like, but it was fun to watch on the TV screen, and I was right there with them.
So, JR, keep me honest here in terms of your responsibilities, okay? And I want to relate this to your recruiting process. When you were approached by coaches and by administrations and by schools, what worked for you as a player? And in your recruiting now for Iowa State, if you dabble in that, again, keep me
Mhm.
honest there, is that personal experience of being recruited, does that work in your favor for when you approach young high school kids?
I think definitely. I think it's very relevant to kind of mix the two, if I so were to say. And you know how to relate to kids, especially kids from certain areas. And as you grow older in this profession, you start to learn how to talk to different people of all different communities and all different socioeconomic backgrounds. But it's very, you can talk about basketball. Most of the young men that I'm recruiting, after the initial stages, it's more about, hey man, how's your day going? How's this person? How's that person? As opposed to like, hey, you got to come to Iowa State. It's got to be Iowa State. Like it's like that's not really it. And that goes to show that's probably why I chose Loyola because it was more about, hey, this is a great basketball program. The basketball piece will be good for you, but they talked about the academics. They asked about my family. They talk about life after basketball and how they'll be with me, and they are. Those are still those coaches and young men were in my wedding, and those coaches were at my wedding. And I still talk to those coaches and rely on them, and that's what it's all about. And I think you do the same thing as I go through the recruiting process, is bringing young men in and helping them develop so that they can be leaders in the future for our society.
I think that's a brilliant response. And JR, allow me here for a second because it evokes memories of me chatting with Xavier's assistant coach, David Miller, who is another
Mhm.
tremendous up and coming rising star. And I
Yep,
asked him about player retention when there was the Chris Steele, I think it was, their former coach transitioning over
yep,
to Sean Miller. And the first thing he said was it's not necessarily just strictly about basketball. I think they were trying to talk to Jack Nungy, who came over from
yep,
Iowa State, I believe,
yep.
but he was
From
just
Iowa.
basic.
Yep,
Yeah. Oh, from Iowa. Excuse me.
yep.
I that's the last time I will get that mixed up, man. That's on me.
Uh,
Uh, but he was basically saying he was like the way you approach these kids is you got to talk to them as family. They got to know you care first, right?
yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I think there's so much going on. There's so many people talking to them and in their ear. You got to formulate an intimate relationship with these guys, and they got to know you care, and they got to know you love them, and you have to tell them. And it can't just be about workouts on the court or in the weight room. It's got to be about more than that. It's got to be the individual time you spend with them in your office. Talking to their parents, talking to them about their girlfriend, whatever it may be, because at the end of the day, they can get good basketball from a lot of different coaches, a lot of different programs, a lot of can offer that, but it's about the existential relationship that you're offering them off the court mainly, and I think that's important.
So as you rise through the ranks here, JR, right? And I don't want this to sound like it's some corporate interview where I'm having fun right now, but man,
Yeah,
as you I'm genuinely curious about this. As you rise through the ranks over the course of your coaching career, you personally, introspectively, what would you say some of your best strengths are? And you talked a little bit about being able to relate to some folks on the recruiting trail, whether it be different aspects of recruiting, sure. But what are some strengths that you think you're bringing to the table as a coach? And then what are some areas of opportunity that you think can be improved upon?
yeah. I think first and foremost, I've kind of established myself as a good recruiter. I think I've been able to bring in guys that have impacted winning, guys that are great in the locker room, guys that are high character student athletes. Um, but also, I think myself and Coach Kyle Green here orchestrated defense here at Iowa State that's kind of gotten known and been nationally known. And, we just get guys to play really hard. I don't think it's a whole bunch of schemes. We're not doing anything tricky. But I enjoy coaching defense. I enjoy, being able to get stops and take pride in that. And, off the court, I think it's my ability to build relationships and have relationships with guys, whether you personally recruit them or you meet them when they first get there. But being able to establish those relationships and have guys want to come in and sit down in your office and not talk about basketball and just sit around and joke and spend that quality time. I think that's something special that not everybody can have, and it has to be organic. Otherwise, I mean, these guys are 18 to 20, or now 23, 24 years old. So they gotta like you. I think that's important. Like you gotta be relatable, you have to be likable. And I still have that right now and I want to keep that going. And you want to continue to improve. I'm constantly trying to learn. I feel like I'm on the best college basketball staff, learning from these guys. And TJ is somebody that is constantly trying to give you more, trying to give you more autonomy, and then challenging you to bring your voice out. And I think that that's something that I'm continuing to get better at. Um, I'm heavy on the defensive end, but I want to continue to learn more on the offensive side. I want to continue to sit in those meetings with those guys and constantly learn how the game is evolving. So never a finished product, nowhere close to it, but definitely feel like I bring a lot of positive attributes that can help contribute to winning.
You summed it up beautifully there because at every one of your stops, you talk about a Colorado State, you talk about a Drake. We've seen how good they are in their conference tournaments and in getting to the NCAA tournament. Iowa State, the resurrection and the turnaround during the Otzelberger era has been nothing short of remarkable. And we're going to get into all of that. But
Mhm.
I think it's very obvious, JR, that you leave a trail. Like you leave a program better than when you found it for sure. And that is contributing to winning. So you talk about getting better. And when I look at you, you're cutting your teeth in the toughest conference in America. I'm okay with saying that. I had some SEC folks on. SEC's great, man. The Big East, they're really
Yeah.
good. The Big 12 is such a like it's a gauntlet, JR. There's no amount of words that can properly do it justice. As someone who is on those sidelines, I'm going to hand the microphone and the floor over to you. What is it like playing in the Big 12?
Oh, it's crazy. The our first year, Coach Daniel Robinson, who's one of my biggest mentors, the head coach at Cleveland State now, we're going into it, and I'm like, man, like, dude, we got 18 games. Like, and we were undefeated at the time. I'm like, man, 13-5, 14-4. Like, let's knock these dudes out. Like, and he's like, hey, man, you trying to go 9-9. Like, you're trying to go 9-9. Like, and I'm like, 9-9. And he's like, 9-9. 9-9 guarantees you in the NCAA tournament. All of it, it's all you're trying to get to. And obviously you're trying to win the league, but I mean, it's just the environments, the level of the skill level, the talent. I mean, you can't explain it. Like, and yeah, obviously you add the Houston's, the Cincinnati, UCF, BYU. I mean, you're adding teams that are all top 50 in the net. Like everyone's like, oh, UCF, like, and they beat their wins over Kansas and Texas. Like, so it really puts everything into a humbling perspective because you never look for. I don't know who we play next week. I won't say I don't know who we play after this game. I know we got Kansas State, then Kansas, but I have no idea who we play next week because you can't worry about that. Like you're not worried about, hey, this team's beating that team. You're like, man, we got Kansas State. Like that's all that matters. We got Kansas State coming up. We got to find a way to try to get them. Like, and you just know it's at home or on the road. That's it.
Unbelievable. Does it ever get like mentally exhausting for you? I understand the physical demands, but
Mhm.
for me, someone who has no skin in this game, who's not on the court, who's not given as much effort as you and the players, I look at schedules of the Big 12 and I'm just
Yeah.
like, man, this is exhausting. Like mentally, this is so exhausting. Does it ever get to that point?
Yeah, I mean, we tell our guys all the time, embrace adversity because it's gonna come. Like you're not going undefeated in the Big 12. No one is. Kansas isn't. Houston isn't. Like so before the conference season, we talk about that. Like we talk about how we handle adversity, how we move forward from losses. I think one of TJ's biggest things is the practice the day after the game will look the same whether we win or lose because we want to come in and continue to do the same thing and we preach our daily habits will constantly be the same. So no, when we beat Houston, we came in the next day and had the same practice as when we lost on the road at BYU. Like, and that is a credit to our guys and the daily habits that we encompass will be like, hey, we're going to do this regardless because at some point you're going to lose a couple in a row. And it may be three, it may be four, but then you got to be able to get that fifth one so you can knock it off and start on a winning streak. So it's a gauntlet of a league. Like, I mean, it's you run into pros every night, and the atmosphere, the environments. I mean, we went to BYU, and I don't know, man. There's 18,000 people in there. Like, oh, this is real. Like, this is real. Like, this is just like going to Allen Fieldhouse or going down to Baylor or going to Texas. Like, so. I mean, it's just something where you got to come and play well, and you give your best shot.
Does it help you sleep a little bit better at night? And you seem like a very modest and humble dude, but I'm here to tell you right now, Iowa State is one of those contributors as to why the Big 12 is so damn good. Like, it's not like you
Yeah,
guys are just food. I mean, you are
yeah.
part of that vicious cycle of teams kind of cannibalizing each other. Does it help you understand, or does it help you feel better when you're like, you know what, we got some dogs too? Like, people need to be scared about coming to Hilton too.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, going in when Hilton is in the Big 12, you know that the league play it's unreal. I feel like we're the best fans in the Big 12, and you know you see it on the opposing team's faces when we make a run or we started off. I thought it was a really big piece of helping us when we play Houston, like get off to a 12-0 start and then you have to call a timeout and you can't hear yourself, so you know they can't hear themselves. And um, it's to your advantage. So it's definitely an advantage playing at Hilton. And you know, I feel like we have a group of young men that are hungry and you know still feel like they have a lot to prove. And I think that that's one of the most important things is continue to stay in that moment so that it's like yeah, we're still going after everybody, and we're hoping that they come after us too. But you know, we feel like, especially you know, getting a win this Saturday without you know one of our better players and being on the road is something where we're like, hey man, we're here and we want to prove to everybody that we're going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Absolutely. And so you mentioned a little bit about the newcomers who have played well. Like, that's another
Mhm.
thing. The newcomers aren't even food either. You mentioned what
Yeah.
UCF did. Cincinnati's been giving teams hell the last few games.
Hmm.
BYU's ranked, right? They shoot
Yeah.
the leather off the ball, all of this stuff, right? You got more teams coming in next year, by the way. So
Man.
the Big 12 has been a focal point really in a lot of this conference realignment, which is a
Mhm.
greater conversation. And
Yeah.
isn't it amazing? Isn't it amazing, JR, from where you were as a player, right, in 04,
Oh
05
yeah.
to where college is right now? Can you talk a little bit about conference realignment and just your thoughts about being a
Yeah.
player in the Big 12 and now logistics change, right? You're going to Utah now. You're going to go to
Yeah.
Arizona. You know, all of this stuff.
You know, it's really when it all kind of went down and you saw who we were adding and all that, you get excited because you know you lose Texas and Oklahoma, um, and then you add it, you know, the Arizona State, Colorado, Utah, programs that have historically continued to be good over the same year. So you're like, hey, it's just more opportunities for us because that's the only way you can look at it. If you look at it like, hey, we got to play this team, then you're like, you're gonna be looking at that for every game. So for us, it's more like, okay, great. Now we get a chance. It's going to be four more quad one games, like on the road, like that you get a chance to play. And you know, it's really a luxury in this league because you even look at some of the leagues now, even some of the Power Five leagues. It's like, hey, I saw something on Twitter the other day. It's like Northwestern only has whatever, like two more chances at quad one opportunities, and I'm like, two more? I'm like, we got 12 more. Like you know, so you want to you got to take those and you got to embrace them because obviously you're not going to win all of them, but you want to have those opportunities when it comes to February and March when you're finishing the conference season to try to boost your resume. And I think adding those teams will only continue to do that.
It's almost like if someone were to ask you, "Hey, JR, how many non Q1 wins or Q1 opportunities you got?" You know, it'd be like, here's the better question. Like the other way.
Yeah,
Everything else
that'd
is,
be exactly. I
yeah.
mean, I'm looking at our schedule right now, and I think the quad three game we have left is West Virginia at home, and they just beat Kansas. Like, you know, everything else is quad one, quad two, and it's like you just gotta Kansas State. That's who we gotta get
Yep.
next.
It's very impressive, and like I said, all I can think about is the word gauntlet. But Jared, I'll
Yeah,
tell you this much, man. I think I let you know I'm an Arizona guy living here in
yeah,
Chicago. So, speaking of the weather, I hope you guys get to go to Tucson and Phoenix
yeah.
in like December, January.
Man, I'll take that.
We'll make the return trip like late February, early March to
There
you.
you
Is that
go.
okay?
That's fine. That's fine.
All right, I'm
It'll
driving
still be
out there
cold
for
to
that.
them. Big time.
Yeah. Um, so we talk a little bit about the Big 12 conference realignment, of course, but this team specifically. Let me start with this program specifically. So
Mhm.
you came here, and I alluded to this a little bit. You came here taking on a 2-win program, JR. 2 wins prior to your arrival and Coach Otzelberger's arrival.
Mhm.
Simply put, how'd you turn it around? Take us back. What is it now? 4 years. Take us back to that time.
Yep. It was. I remember the summer vividly because we talked about just preaching daily habits, like changing. Everyone says the culture and everything, and we knew that that was a big thing. Obviously, coming off a program that historically has been good. So TJ obviously had been a part of a lot of the NCAA tournaments and the good players that were there when he was an assistant here. So he knew some of the blueprint and some of what we needed to do, but he had a plan in mind of, hey, we practice every day at 7 a.m. Like we practice every day at 7 a.m. We get the guys in here. We were changing it that way. So I think you kind of weed out some of the guys that you knew weren't all the way bought in because oh they're late or this is so it's like hey those guys got to go too. Um, we brought in a ton of new guys. Isaiah Brockington was a guy that was one of our, he ended up being first team all conference. He averaged 9 points at Penn State, but he was a daily habits mentality guy. Gabe Kelscher, same thing. Rob Jones, who is the only guy that's been here through this whole program, is still with us. And, Rob's the epitome of what Iowa State basketball is right now. But the plan was come in, do the same thing every day, over and over and over again, constantly trying to enhance your daily habits, do that and do it to the highest level of your capabilities and, continue to play to whoever strengths they were. And we constantly just challenge these guys and man, we were believers. Season got off and we went to to Brooklyn and played Xavier. They were ranked, and played Memphis. They were ranked, and we beat both of them. Ended up winning the championship, the preseason NIT, and all of a sudden you could see it in our guys' eyes. They were kind of like, "Oh man, like this is real. Like this is something we got a chance to do." And we started the season off 13-0, and played Baylor. I remember we played Baylor the first game of the Big 12 at our place, and I think we were ranked maybe 8. We were ranked way too high. We weren't the 8th best team in the nation, by not even close. It was like 8 versus 5, and they came in and they smacked us. Like I think they ended up winning by 10 or 12, and we were kind of like, yeah, that's pretty much pretty what it should have been. And we ended up winning 7 league games, and we were picked to finish dead last. And we sneak into the tournament, and we really limped into the tournament. I mean, we got beat by almost 40 to Texas Tech, who had McCullough and Terrence Shannon, all those dudes in the first round of the conference tournament, and we ended up getting an 11 seed and getting an LSU team who had just lost Will Wade, and then we ended up playing in Milwaukee. So TJ and I were like, "Oh, this is perfect," and we were playing Wisconsin to go to the Sweet 16, and it was funny because that year we had played so much better on the road and it was a road game. Like it was full. Like Pfizer was full of it was 90% Wisconsin fans, and you could just see it in our guys' eyes. Like they're like, "Oh man, this is better for us." Like and play really well. And we I felt like we dominated that game versus the Badgers, and we move on to the Sweet 16, end up losing to Miami. And I think that first year set the tone for what it was going to be, and we were able to get a few more transfers with some experience the next year. Jared Holmes and Oshuni and Gabe was back, and last year able to be a 6 seed, and now it's about continuing to do that. And I think it's still the same thing. Like we still get our guys up early throughout the summer, 7 a.m. Still get up early. We practice in the morning tomorrow. Practice in the morning every day, and continue to come in and get extra shots in, watch extra film, do extra weight program because that's just the culture that we've established, and we're not going to deviate from what has happened to get us some success now. And I think that's just who and what Iowa State is about right now.
People throw around the term complete 180. This is about as complete 180 as you can get from 2 wins to go into the
Yeah.
Sweet 16. Please be 100% serious with me, JR, in your wildest imagination, first stepping foot into Ames, taking over a 2-win program. Did you really see this team at the end of the road being a Sweet 16 type of team. And like I know you had mentioned that midseason tournament where you won and you started to believe, but like when you first got there and then towards at the very end and you're packing your things up after the Miami loss, you had to feel some serious sense of pride.
Yeah, I mean, anybody that says that they even thought it was going to be a NCAA tournament team coming off 2 wins, I think would be lying to you. Now, you start to establish, your mindset of like, this is what we will do. This is how we're going to do it, and you put your mind to it. But I mean, a team picked dead last. I had never been in the Big 12. You're talking about Kansas, Texas, Baylor is coming off a national championship. Like, so no, but I think as the year went on, especially after that tournament in Brooklyn. You're kind of like, man, we got a chance. Like we really defended. We had a couple wings that were good players. Tyrese Hunter was a freshman for us, and he was special. So, I think all of those pieces when they kind of came together and everyone embraced and accepted their role, you're like, man, this team has a chance to make some noise. And I think the NCAA tournament's all about matchups. Like, you got to get lucky, and you can have an 11 seed that's better than a six. Like, that happened. That happened to us when we won, and it happened to us the next year when we were a 6 seed and lose to an 11. So I think that's what it's all about.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about this year's team now, because I know we got some Clones fans out there listening to this that are very excited. They want to sink their teeth into some of this year's team's content. And for some, you may have taken some folks by surprise. I wouldn't understand why that is, but you know, you're a basketball program now in Otzelberg. Not now, excuse me. I should rephrase that as to say like you were perennially a basketball program. Like
Yeah,
you're always going to be good. And TJ Otzelberger has done a wonderful job. But as it relates to this particular team, I want to talk personnel first. Taman Lipsey,
yeah.
can you help me better understand what you're seeing from your perspective about his growth in the time that you've been with him?
The only way somebody asked me this the other day, and there's not a whole lot of words to describe the special young man off the court and on the court that he is, but if Taman's on the floor and we're doing a drill, his team never loses. Never. So that's what he does as he is evolved into a more of a scorer. He's making more threes. Obviously, that was the knock on him last year. He didn't shoot it well, and he worked his butt off all summer. But he's a kid that just he has so much pride in being a Cyclone. Both his parents work at Iowa State. He grew up in Ames. He grew up coming to Hilton and watching those teams play well. Um, and the amount of pride that he has in being one of those next great players. And you can see how he works, how he talks and communicates about Iowa State, and he embodies what it is to be an Iowa State Cyclone, and he takes really pride of wearing Cyclones across his chest every day, and he's growing. He's growing as a leader. He's growing as a scorer. He's growing as a passer. He leads us in rebounding. He leads us in steals. Like he does it all. Like he does it all.
I didn't know that he was a local kid and that he had that
Yeah.
many connections to Iowa State. That's pretty fascinating.
Yep. He
Um,
he's a special kid.
yes, yes. So you referenced your defense earlier on in this episode, and I feel like you somehow got into my computer and you're seeing my notes here because quote, your defense has been incredible. I need to know how. I think that TCU game. So I'm looking at the score while also trying to catch all the games. And I saw that you forced 16 turnovers in the first half at one point. Did that number increase in the first half? What did
It
you have
got
to
to
half with?
it got to 18 at halftime, 27 for the game. Um,
Golly.
yeah, I mean we take pride in playing harder than the other team on the defensive end. So on defense, the word we like to use is dictate. we want to make sure that we're disrupting everything. There's a lot of great players, great coaches that are orchestrating offenses in this league, and you're not going to be able to stop them. But there's going to be times where we feel like we want to be disruptive. We want to try to take you out of what you're doing, and not necessarily with a whole bunch of schemes. More like, hey, we're gonna play harder than you. We're gonna cut harder. We're gonna be more physical. Um, we're going to have confrontations at the rim. And TCU game, we were able to do those things, and fortunately for us, caught them a little bit off guard. I think with our physicality, and that's something that we try to take pride in.
The defensive identity has just been something else. I'm curious to know, JR, is this something that's implemented way back in the preseason? Or is this something where you and Coach Otzelberger and the rest of the staff kind of look at your finalized roster and you say, okay, what are some of these guys' strengths? And that should then translate to the team. Like when does the emphasis on being this great of a defense start?
Yeah, it's June. Guys get here, and I don't think you recruit to what you want to have and how you would like to play. But obviously, some guys get here and they're better at some things than others, and worse at some things than others. But it's one of the non-negotiables for TJ. Is like we're going to pressure the basketball. We're going to be disruptive. Guys are going to defend, and I think guys embody that. Like I don't think I'm not a huge believer in like, hey, this guy can't guard that guy, or this like it's like, no, you can't. Defense is something that you have inside you where it's like, all right, I got some pride. Like my feet may not be as quick as this guy, but there's angles to this. There's certain ways to play defense that are different than offense, where it's like, man, if I can't shoot, like I'm probably not going to figure out how to shoot in a matter of a couple months. Like I can defend in June and be a much better defender by the time we get to the season. And we just constantly are repping it out. Like we spend a lot of the summer working on our defense, like way more than our offense, and then now we kind of shift it as we get to the season. But it's June. Guys get on campus. That first practice. I mean, it's closeouts, it's defensive drills, it's getting after it.
Have you seen the ability to play defense? I don't want to say decline, but change. And what I mean by that, JR, is in your day, it did feel like there were less foul calls. And if you
Mhm.
can't understand what I'm doing right now, I'm just straight up blaming the refs for blowing their whistle way too damn often.
Yep.
Is there an art to teaching defense in today's age as opposed to when you were playing? And I know I can already tell you're not on some like back in my day, when I'm
No.
like on some old head stuff, right?
Yep.
How do you teach defense today?
I think the one thing I will say is I totally agree with you. And sometimes in the Big 12, it's like playing football. And they let you tackle and let you do all that, and it's a very physical league. But we try to emphasize to our guys like we know at Iowa State that we are going to foul. Like we're not a team that's like, hey man, we're trying to be a perfect game. Like we're going to foul. Like we're going to foul. And I think we want to make the game as physical, as ugly, as dirty as possible. But we tell our guys, hey, we want to show our hands. The rule changes this year with the block charge really affected us. Like we were a team that took a ton of charges off the basketball, trying to come over and help. And now that basically essentially is a block. So we're teaching jump walls, different things where we can have a confrontation with our body and still be legal. Because like you said, there are a lot more fouls called. There's a lot, feel like a lot of more ticky tack things that when I was playing, it was like, man, you just get through the screen and you can elbow the dude and you can basically punch the guy who's setting the screen and you just kind of get through it. And dudes would set illegal screens with their knees out and you just kind of got to get over it. You had to find a way to get over it. And now there's so much more going on in the game. The game has evolved so much offensively, where there's so much more spacing and all that stuff. Where when I was playing, it was everyone had a 4 and a 5, and they're both on the block. Like there's no space to go anywhere. And now it's like the 4-man shoot and the 5-man shoots, and so there's so much more space on the floor. But we preach it, physicality. That was a big word. And we went down to TCU. We just kept saying, "Hey, we just need to be physical, 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 physical." Like, and try to get guys to respond to that.
Well, I think to your point about the offense evolving, you see that certainly in the college game, but it's never been more evident than in the NBA. And
Yeah,
nothing grinds my gears more than when I hear people say they don't play defense in the NBA. I'm like,
yeah,
I think the perfect encapsulation was that Clippers Warriors series, Pat Bev and Lou Williams. They were at
yeah,
they were talking about guarding Kevin Durant. It's like, I tried, man. Like,
yeah.
that's
Like,
Kevin freaking Durant. And there's a
it's
lot of those
crazy.
guys.
Yeah, I mean, I I love watching the NBA more for the offensive perspective because you watching guys and it's a 6'7" guy that's shooting over a 6'8" guy, and they make the shots look so easy that people are like, "Oh, they don't guard anybody." I'm like, "Hey, man, like that dude's actually taller with a longer wingspan. He's just a better offensive player. Like he just knew exactly what spot he wanted to get to. He faded at a different angle and made the shot. Like, and those guys like they make it look so easy. It's like, hey, we should just run that set. Like,
Yeah.
well, yeah, you better have Devin Booker or Kevin Durant or somebody making the shot.
It's just funny. I'll rein myself in here, but one last story I got to tell. Isaiah Wilkins, I was talking to him, who is a tremendous
Hmm.
player at Virginia, defensive player, and he was telling a story about locking up Jason Tatum in the first half, and then Tatum just sauteed him in the second half, and it's like it's not fair. Like it's Jason Tatum, man.
There's nothing you can do, man. Like it just you feel like that sometimes in the Big 12, and then they take it to a whole nother level where it's just like, man, it's just this guy's 6'10" and he plays like a 6'3" guard and he can make every shot in the book.
Yeah. Okay, I am going to rein myself back in, get refocused on this Iowa
Uh,
State team. JR, what is this team's identity? What's this brand? Like, I see the Nike swoosh logo, I think sports. I see the Apple logo, I think technology. What is the brand and identity of this year's Cyclone team?
I think our identity would be a combination of toughness and unity. I think this is a team that is willing to grit it out, but it's a group this group is more connected on and off the court than any group that we've had so far. And that's not to slight those other teams, but it's not even the on the court thing. It's what they do off the court. It's how they hang out, how they communicate with each other, and I think that helps you get through adverse times. On the court, I think this is a tough group, a group that's willing to grit it out, a group is willing to win a game scoring 90 or win a game beating Houston scoring 57, and kind of has a balance of both where we know our identity can come from the defensive end, but a little bit different than years past where we got some guys that can fill it up and got a little bit of skill on the offensive end that we can run with some other teams. So I think we have a good balance, but the unity that comes together with this group, I think is one of the biggest factors that can help us be successful, hopefully down the stretch here.
You've been here 4 years. You've seen the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows. Things change, but things also stay consistent. Can you give me a better understanding of what has stayed consistent at the program, mantra, identity, anything like that? What has stayed consistent over the 4 years during your time? And what are some things that you've noticed to change?
I mean, our daily habits to stay consistent. How we do things. We tell our guys what we will do. That's the vocabulary that we use. We don't talk about this guy could be this guy could be that, this scout could be. It's hey, this is what we will do. We try to focus on Iowa State. We try to focus on our guys and how we can make them successful. That's something that has not changed, will not change. And the daily habits, how we go out, how we work, the time that we work, the time that we put in, those are all things that stay the same. And we practice consistency in that manner. Some things that have changed. I think we've gone the first year, it was all defense, 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 and then basically Brockington was going to take the shot at the end and kind of get the rebound if we didn't go in. And even last year, a little bit of that with Kelsher and Jaron Holmes, and then I think now we're trying to flow into a more balance of defense and offense. Our defense has still been pretty good, and offensively, I think we've shown, adding Milan and Kurt Jones, guys that can make shots, Keyshawn Gilbert, somebody that can play downhill along with Taman, adding some roster personnel that can equate to the defense and add it to the offensive end too. I think that's one of the biggest changes. But how we operate, how we practice, how we speak to our guys has been all the same, and that's basically the daily habits that we preach every day.
It's a formula that's been working now for 4 years, so I wouldn't divert from it. I can't
Yeah,
imagine you will, but yeah, I wouldn't divert, from that. All right, JR, let's have some fun, all right?
yes, sir.
I'm gonna get you out of here on some fun questions.
Okay.
What's TJ Otzelberger like off the court? Take us behind the curtain, man.
Uh, he's chill. Man, it's funny. I think a lot of people see him. He's like this tough, like mean, and he's super chill. Like, he's got 3 kids, 3 little kids that are all the same age as my kids. Drinks a lot of energy drinks. He's chill, but he's hype at the same time. But man, good dude, easy to work for, like super laid back, family guy. So it's somebody that's been a huge mentor for me, and as I go through this coaching thing.
Now, look, I'm no fashion model, but I'd be remiss if I didn't get an Iowa State guy on here to say that those are some tight shirts Coach Otz wears during
Yeah,
game day.
man. Hey, man. Him and I we work out in the morning. So he's constantly he's getting his muscles right. So we're on ESPN a lot, and he's like, hey, man, I gotta make sure I look right.
You alluded to this earlier, playing Wisconsin and Milwaukee. Was there any added juice for you, like the home state team? I know it's
Yeah,
Marquette's there, but
yeah.
Wisconsin is a Badger state, if I were to guess.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Any additional juice
No,
for you there?
that was probably the most fun game that I've been a part of. Just being able to win that game, and our small contingent of Iowa State and Milwaukee fans that were there to go to the Sweet 16, someplace I had never been, to do it in my home state, 10 minutes from my house, like it was amazing. Something I'll never forget.
Back to your Loyola Chicago days. Did you ever meet Sister Jean?
Oh yeah, Sister Jean she gave a pregame speech before every home game. Every
Okay.
home game. I mean, she knew stats like, hey, Gordon Hayward he's missed his last 6 threes, and Sheldon Mack is this, and Norris Cole. You can go under the ball screen on Norris Cole. Like he's not going to shoot it. Like, I mean, I mean, I'm sure she's not. Yes, she's growing a little bit older here. She's still there and kicking, but yeah, it was an intense scouting report that was mixed into a prayer. So yeah, all the stuff that happened when they went to the Final Four, the people were like, "Is this real? Like, is it?" I'm like, "This is real. Like, this is who she is. Like, this is not a facade. Like, this is real life."
Real ball knower, huh? I mean, she handicapped Butler pretty perfectly there, just huh?
Yeah. Yep.
That's impressive. We've talked about the changes in the college basketball landscape. We talk about defense and how it's changed. We talk about how you apply your experience in recruiting. One big change since you were playing and where we are now is NIL. So let's do a little hypothetical. You're at
Yep.
Loyola Chicago today. You have any choice of NIL you want. What's the business? What is the NIL, man? Who are you promoting? Is there a local business in Chicago that you loved?
Man, that's tough. I'm kind of like a fashion guy, so to say. Like, so if I could do something, I think I would go like some designer. Like, I think I would go like Gucci or Louis or something, so that I could walk into the games like, oh man, like, oh, he's got that on. I'm like, yeah, this is actually free. Like, this is my NIL deal. Like, so I think I would use something where I could benefit from it. In that way, or either some kind of food, something where I was constantly just getting free food, because that's always something you need as a college kid.
Yeah, isn't it funny? I follow these team accounts, and It's like flicks from the runway. I'm like,
Yeah,
man,
yeah.
like, what were you showing
That's
up into the game? How were you
that.
showing
Yeah,
up in the game?
I was like, man, that it's funny because like you do see that. Like we go from our pregame meal over to Hilton. I'm like, why are these guys dressed up? Like, I'm like, this is crazy. Like I was just having whatever sweatsuit we were given. Like I'm wear that from my dorm. Man, these dudes got jeans on, they got graphic tees, like they got designer stuff on, they got nice shoes. I'm like, oh, this is for those. Oh, okay, like I got y'all. Like, and then you see him posted after the game. You're like, oh, that's why he was dressed up. So now he had 20 points and he looked good before and after the game. So it's probably up in his followers.
Hey, man, look good, feel good. It's a real thing.
Hey,
That's a real thing.
I'm not hating.
Uh, I believe it. Um, you, TJ Otzelberger, Milwaukee guys, Iowa State. There is another Iowa State guy in the NBA from Milwaukee, I believe, who's doing all right. He's pretty good. How cool is it to see Tyrese Halliburton representing Iowa State the way he has been?
Yeah, man, Tyrese has been great. He actually was just out. They played the Jazz, and he came to our BYU game and talked to the guys after the game. Like he's been great for our guys. Like he's around in the summer a ton. Obviously, an incredible success story and somebody who is representing the state of Wisconsin. But somebody who, I mean, I was at Drake when he was coming out of high school, and I remember having him on a visit at Drake, and he was going to Drake and UNI, and everyone was like, okay, yeah, he'd probably be a decent Valley player. And I mean, the guy goes to Iowa State and plays on the USA team, and he's going to be an All Star again this year. He's continuing to ascend, and it's awesome for what he's doing, but also for the recognition that he's given Iowa State, and he continues to constantly shout us out and help the program as much as he can.
How cool is it for the players to get addressed by Tyrese Halliburton?
Yeah, it's almost like he's around. I would say 3 or 4 times in the summer,
Wow.
where now they just see him where it's just like, "Hey, what's up, bro?" Like, it's not they're not starstruck, I don't think anymore. I think initially you're like, "Wow, it's Tyrese," and then now it's like, "Oh, that's the 10th time I've met him." Like, and he's super laid back, like humble dude, and he talked to our guys after we lost at BYU, and he's like, "Look, I was in this league. Like you're gonna have these nights, and then you guys need to go win at TCU, and then you'll have some more adversity, and then you need to win the next one." He's like, I know exactly how you guys feel, and you play 30 games, and you feel like every time you lose one, it's the end of the world, but it's not. Like he's like, you have another opportunity, and I thought that was a great message that he gave our guys, and obviously, hey, we'll credit him for the win at TCU. He told us to bounce back.
I think that's a wonderful message, especially because, and I'm not part of the media. I just enjoy doing this, but I'm not going to sit here and say I'm college basketball media. But what I see is a team will lose two straight, and it's like, oh, is it time to panic? Is it time to hit the
Yeah,
panic button? Or a team will win two straight, and it's like, oh man, are they Final Four bound? I'm like,
yeah,
guys,
right.
we're talking
It's
about
crazy.
college kids here in
Yeah.
January. Like we got some time. Now, of course, there's behaviors and things that you can identify that could be troubling or
Mhm.
good for the future. But man, I'm
Yep.
glad he let them know. And that's anything in life, right? Like
That
for
is.
18,
That
19
is.
year old kids, when you're down on your luck or you think something's bad, like you got that tunnel vision, open it up to the greater picture. I think that's really cool. And I appreciate you letting us know that Tyrese came through.
No, no,
Uh,
it's been good.
why is Hilton Magic real?
Whew, man, I've had a lot of great experiences. It's just it's almost like you start off with a 10-point lead. I think that'd be how I describe it. It's funny. I remember the first time our newer guys really experienced it. And it's every game, but the sellouts are a little bit different. It was when we played Iowa this year, I was shooting with Taman before the game, and Keyshawn Gilbert walked out, and the whole student section was already filled. And this was 2 hours before the game. And he goes, "Oh, this is real." Like, and he just kind of sat down and looked up at it. And I was like, "Yeah." And then Taman was like, "Yeah, dude, like this is real. Like, this is what it is." And um, I don't know, man. It's just something that happens. It happens in there. guys make timely shots. The ball bounces the right way, and it turns out like it looks like it's going to be a turnover, and it ends up being a dunk for you, or it ends up being a 3-point shot, or you get the crowd into the game early, and they're constantly just having your back, and it's 14,500 people just all rooting for you. It's almost like the help all go in a little bit. So it's something special, and we'll see it on Wednesday. We need every little bit of luck and help we can get.
Yeah, I've got to be watching. It is a special atmosphere. Like I said, I will be there. Don't worry, I'm not going to rile up and be a jerk, an obnoxious fan. But I just, I want to check it out. I want to, as a
You have
college
to.
basketball fan, I need to take a look at it. Hey, so we've talked a lot about your tremendous growth and what you've accomplished on the sideline as a player, all of the folks that you've crossed paths with, and all of the players that you've impacted on the court. A lot of this is obviously on the court stuff. But JR, it is very impressive, your philanthropic work. And I think we need to carve out time for you to explain and give us insight and detail regarding the Together initiative that took
Mhm.
place, I think, at Colorado State. So, can you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit more about that and give us a better understanding?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was during the time of some racial injustices that were going on. I was specifically the George Floyd incident in Minneapolis, and it was really a time of education. And I felt myself, along with some other of my administration and coworkers, were just wanted to kind of incorporate everybody. And I think there was a lot of different narratives going around about this and this, or this person feels that, or this group feels that. And it was something where we were all able to come together during COVID. So it was over Zoom, but we read a couple books, yeah, each there's about 5 books that you had a choice to read from, and just coming together and really asking questions, and everyone having an open dialogue and not a closed mind of, I don't want to ask this question because they may feel this way, or I don't want to say this and make that person. And I thought the biggest thing was people coming together, and everyone sharing their opinions on a totally neutral slate. Um, I think our team got involved, and we made T-shirts, and that next season we had, Black Lives Matter shirts and everything like that, and all that's great. But I thought, the biggest thing with the Together initiative was coming able to be able to educate everyone, and everyone hearing everyone else's perspective, not just because I'm an African American and this happened to an African American, so I know exactly what's right. It was everyone saying, okay, this is how I feel. Okay, hey, can you tell me why you feel that way? And just having that conversation, and building relationships that you say, okay, like, now I know why you feel that way, or now I understand that, and I may or may not agree. That's fine. Like, but coming together and having those conversations. And I think that that was really important, and an integral part of the Together initiative.
I think that's incredible. I think that's very neat of you to share and for you to get off the ground as well. Maybe I need to do more research. Have you done anything or pursued anything like that in Ames there at Iowa State? Any plans for any additional philanthropic work? Curious to know.
Yeah, when I first got here, Danielle Robinson, who's a head coach at Cleveland State now, and our director of basketball operations, Micah Byers, were leading a group called BACA, Black Assistant Coaches. And for that first couple years, we kind of organized some Zooms and talked about that, and it was inclusive of all the assistant coaches in the Big 12, not just African Americans, but just continuing to try to educate, try to learn more, try to do things. Rallies, Juneteenth rallies we did, and different things like that. And but just continuing to promote social equality. Not necessarily a race thing. Doesn't have to be black, white, brown, whatever. It's just you're just trying to promote equality and make sure that everyone's educated in the right sense, so that people can ask the right questions, and get to know everyone, and everyone can just be treated equally.
Yeah. Well, look, I think almost any staff would or should have a guy like you, not only for what you're able to contribute on the court, but certainly what you're able to do off the court as well. JR, I really appreciate
Appreciate
the
it.
time. I'm going to get you out of here on this. It's my last question I ask all of my guests. It's called Bring Them Up on Stage. Okay. Is there anyone that you would recommend me reach out to or that you can refer me to that you think would enjoy coming onto the program and sharing some stories as you've been so kind to do and would allow me to pester them like I did this past week for you with you?
Yeah, I'll go with probably my best friend in the business, assistant coach at Colorado State, Ali Farouk. Um, he's was good player at Northern Iowa, made the shot versus Kansas. So, and every time during the NCAA tournament starts, I just start harassing him like, "Hey, man, like you're gonna be famous again for another 5 days." But he's great friend, somebody I really rely on. Talk numerous times throughout the week. Um, we're ranked one spot ahead of them today, so I'll have to give him some shit about that. But he's a great basketball mind, but even better person, father. When we were both at Drake together, we lived on the same block, and Colorado State, man, we were kicking it all the time. So that's my guy. I would definitely recommend him, and he'll have longer stories telling you about how great his shot was and all that stuff.
Man, there I'm already envisioning it. Like, I don't know how much we talk about Colorado State. I'd just be talking about that shot, like Brady Morningstar. I think the Morris twins
Yep,
were on the Kansas. Like, I was
yep,
home from break and I think I was eating dinner and I was like, what the hell is he doing shooting this?
yep,
Like,
yeah. It's a crazy deal, but he'll also tell you that he made a game winning shot the game before that versus UNLV that nobody talks about. Like, and he'll act like it's not a big deal, but that one was like just the same shot. Like, it just didn't get as much coverage because they wasn't the number one team in the country at the time. But he can still really shoot it, and we were a pretty good 2-on-2 tandem at Colorado State because he can shoot and I can guard, and he can't guard and I can't shoot, so we had a good balance. But we were good, and that's my boy.
if we're lucky enough to get him on, I will be playing that clip where you say he
Yeah.
can't guard. So let me make sure I get that right. But
Oh, he knows it.
Jared Blount, this was tremendous. Thank you so much. I might pester you just a little bit more to get in touch with Ali
Oh
there
yeah,
so
I
we can,
got you.
I appreciate it. This was a blast, man. Thank you so much. Best of luck moving forward in that gauntlet, but we will be
Yeah,
watching, and I know you guys are going to continue to make some noise. Thank you again.
thank you. Appreciate you.